We know what's happening in the world. We know I'm stepping out here for Hafeman Brothers. Racism is bad. It's wrong. It's not okay. Treating people differently because they look different than you, not okay. I'm just going to say that off the top. If that makes you leave, then maybe you don't want to hang with us anyway. We have a special guest tonight, one of our friends, Browner, and he brings a really unique perspective to this situation. So, and he was willing to tell us a little bit about it. So, Brown, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can give us a little bit about your experience in your life with your adopted kids.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be on here and great to be with you guys again. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. It's been interesting to process, and it's been something we've processed for some time. But I'm a white dude that grew up with white privilege for sure in a small town in central Wisconsin. Didn't have many people of minority there. Didn't have to worry about doing a lot of things or going a lot of places. And then fast forward 20 some years, and my wife Hannah and I wanted to start a family. We're unable to due to some medical things, and so decided to look the route of adoption. And at the time, the church we were going to had just started an orphanage in Ethiopia, and we were good friends with the couple that was doing that. And so we adopted our son 10 years ago. Actually met him for the first time 10 years ago this week.
Wow.
And adopted Elijah from Ethiopia. And then 5 years later, we adopted Jonas Tong from China. So as two white Caucasian adults, we have two minority kids. And obviously the one in the news this week is the stuff with the Black Lives Matter and the racism towards that race over a long span of history. And so it's been really interesting for me to process. I mean, the emotions this week have ranged from anger to major sadness to anxiety for Elijah's future. But also one of hope with a lot of the things that we see. We tend to, in these media rich times, to focus a lot on the negative and the anxiety that can come with it. And those are important emotions and things to process too. But also there's a lot of hope and a lot of good I see coming out of that. And my wife and I have started to talk about it more with Elijah. He's now 11. He had his last day of 5th grade today. He'll be moving on to DeLong Middle School in the fall. And had some conversations about what he knows about the word racism, what he knows about what's happening. Eau Claire has had 3 very peaceful rallies and marches over the last week. There was a quite large one tonight led by Justin Vernon, who's known for Bon Iver, the music of Bon Iver. Him and some of his friends led one tonight downtown Eau Claire. Due to other things, they had a 5th grade celebration in the Sherman parking lot tonight, so we didn't go to that. But there's a special on tomorrow that CNN is coupling with Sesame Street to talk about racism and do a kind of a roundtable with some kids around the subject. Hannah and I have admitted that, we've just kind of gone with the flow with a lot of things to this point, but now that he's entering middle school and the world seems amped up on it again, that we've made a pledge to educate ourselves more. My sister lives down the Madison area and was a sociology major in college and studies a lot of this stuff. And so she suggested some good books or podcast listens. And I've been starting to read a book this week, and I just felt like I need to take a step back, because as it started to unfold last week, I felt very overwhelmed with all the information that's out there and that you could get to, but also to just step back. And a lot of people have said, just listen, educate yourselves, listen. I have a guy that's become a good friend of mine that I teach with. He's an African-American male that's a teacher in our building. And I reached out to him this week, and he said, I'd love to go, have a bite to eat sometime or have a drink or get together for a campfire and just talk. And I said, I'd love to listen to you, anything you want to share with us and stuff like that. So, of course, there's anxiety or anxiousness about Elijah's future, about Jonas's future. Um, uh, but I also believe in my heart of hearts that uh, uh, we can take one day at a time, and we can love them the best we can, and we can educate ourselves, and we can share that and show others that, and get involved where we can, and feel responsible to. But interesting being two white privileged adults that are now tasked with raising two minority children in the world that we're dealt with right now.
Yeah, I just thought it's a very different perspective. And, I think for a lot of us, like Ben and I grew up in a small town. I think there was one African American family in the whole town during our childhood. And, we went to school in Western Wisconsin. I mean, there's a little bit of diversity on campus, but it's not as much as, you would think. I mean, just look at, all four of us were in the Statesman group, and, it was mostly Caucasian guys in that group. So it's not, it's just things that we haven't really been faced with in our lives very often, the harsh reality and the perspective of some of these Black families who know this from the time they have children and then have to try to raise them in that environment, versus Brown's case, where he didn't grow up with this experience, but here he's got two children that he needs to really address that with, and make sure that they're educated, that you guys are educated. And the biggest thing moving forward is that we all put our voices forth. We got to listen. That's the big part. Educate ourselves and learn and try to, this is like a really big in the other person's shoes moment, to picture yourself, put yourself in somebody else's shoes moment, so you can grasp this best. And then once we have that, we need to advocate. We need to speak out. It's not look away from something that's said or something that's wrong or whatever. It's no, I'm sorry. That's not okay to say. That's not okay to do. This is where we are. We're all human beings. And I've been going on human decency for a while, and I'm going to say it every day till the end of my life. That's what I'm calling for across the board. Human decency is the challenge. We need it from our leaders. We need it from our police. We need it from everybody. We need it from ourselves. All human beings. Okay. That's my soapbox rant, but I think it's fair during these times.
Hey, I gotta talk.
All right,
Browner, thank you, man. Thank you,
Yeah.
Browner. I appreciate everything you're saying. Just my connection's stupid, so I might blip out and do crap, and I hope that doesn't happen to me. But there's something this week I really was questioning because when things happen, even with Kaepernick 4 years ago, I wasn't upset, mostly because I'm not the most patriotic guy in the world. I hate to say it, but I'm not. I'm just hey, I know what my rights are, and they're great. But as Jason said, we grew up in an all-white community pretty much. Went to college with mostly white people. I never, and most of my friends, to be honest, have always been white guys, and most people I talk to. And I actually watched the video today where Kenny Smith from Inside the NBA said the first time he hugged somebody of a different race wasn't until he was on the basketball court playing basketball. So it's if you don't have those experiences with other people of other races, you don't really know what they're going through or understand what they're going through. And this week I watched a lot of different things, and there was in Atlanta, there's this rapper Killer Mike. I don't know anything about him. I think he should change his name, but that's besides the point. But man, he had one of the speeches that the mayor of Atlanta had him come on, and it was great. It was really amazing. I never heard of this guy in my life before. Then he was also on another show on ESPN. I can't remember what it was, or maybe it was no, it must have been the Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp show. And he talked about something that you got, that he was I can't really explain it, but you should watch this. And it's this blue-eyed, brown-eyed video with this Jane Elliott or something like that. And I watched it last night, and there's this thing where she goes and has these college kids. There's other versions of it, but the one I watched in particular was one with these college kids, and it's not for everybody to watch because it's pretty abrasive. Like Jessie was watching with me, and after a while she was like, I don't know if I can really watch this anymore. This is kind of tough to watch these kids, go through this thing. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a 2-hour a day where they're feeling what it's like to be somebody else for once. And I would suggest anybody who has the time, go on YouTube, look this up. I think it's just called Blue-Eyed, Brown-Eyed Experiment or something like that, where she separates the people by brown eyes and light colored eyes. And she takes the people with brown eyes and she puts them with privilege, and she puts the people with light colored eyes in a disadvantage. And then she's very stern and aggressive with the people with light colored eyes. And she gives the people with the brown colored eyes every advantage in the situation. And you watch, obviously most of the kids, all the kids with light colored eyes are, Caucasian. And she's very stern with them. And she's very trying to get them to understand what it feels like to not have that privilege and not feel, completely confident in where you're at and what you're doing. And by watching that, I was just like, man, just watching these kids go through 2 hours of this, can you imagine handling that your entire life, not knowing or not feeling confident or not feeling completely aware or assured that you're going to be able to do what you want and go where you want without having to, watch what you're doing. And then I wanted to be real careful before I said something. I wanted to go back and watch that Zadarius Smith when he got pulled over this last year, since this is a Packer thing. We used to do Packer stuff. And on that video, I watched it again today to make sure, because I didn't want to say anything incorrect. But the police officers, the first thing they say is, hey, did you know you were going 81? Or no, Zadarius asked why they pulled him over, and he's like, well, you're going 81. You're going that fast. And this is the highway from Chicago to Green Bay. And I've been on that highway. People are going freaking 81 all the dang time. So that's kind of ridiculous that he got pulled over for that. The very next question was, do you guys have weed in the car? And Zadarius said, well, we were smoking earlier, but, we don't have nothing now. And then he's like, well, can you shut the car off and then get out of the car? So then Zadarius does that because that's what he asked him to do. And then as soon as he gets out of the car, the police officer is like putting him in handcuffs. And all he did was stop him for going 81. And Zadarius is like, am I being arrested? And he's like, no, we just got to search your car. And I'm like, well, first of all, why is he searching his car for stopping him for a speeding ticket? Second of all, why is he putting him in handcuffs during this time? And then they go and they put him in the squad car with whoever else is with them. I think it was actually Kingsley Keekly and maybe somebody else. I can't remember. But then they search his car. They find 2 bags in the back seat. And then they asked Darius, hey, whose bags are these? And he's like, well, why? What's wrong? And then he's like, well, there was some marijuana in them. And he's like, well, that was my bag. And then he's like, okay. And then he's like, well, what about these other? He's like, there's another bag. And then he's like, and then Zadarius is like, I'll take that too. Yeah, that was mine too. So Zadarius took the hit for those other 2 guys, first of all, who was in the car with him. Because he didn't know. And you saw it on Zadarius' face when he was like, man, what are you guys doing with this crap in my car? But the bottom line to me is this. He got stopped for going 81, which has never happened to me. I've driven 81 on that highway a couple times. Never got stopped in my life. He was asked to come out of his car and handcuffed and put in the back of the police car just so that they could search his car on what, I don't know why they decided to search his car. Because he's a black guy who's driving a kind of expensive car, I guess. I don't know. And that's just a video of something you're seeing of, and it's not the police brutality or anything like that. It's just, it's people not being given the same rights that we're used to. And when you watch that, and when, like I said, you watch the blue-eyed, brown-eyed thing I was talking about, it really hits you, and you're like, what is this crap? Like, I would never, if that was me, and somebody's trying to pull that crap on me, I'd be pissed. I'd be screaming my brains out. And guys like Zadarius and other people in the world have to just take it and be Zadarius didn't fight back. The police officers weren't rough and they weren't rude or anything like that. But he had to do whatever they said. He got out of the car. He let himself get handcuffed. For what? He looked like a criminal on the side of the street. All these cars are driving past and they see, a big black guy with his hands, handcuffed. How's that look? That's a bunch of garbage. And it's not just police brutality that's a problem. It's a whole, like they say, it's a systemic thing where it's like these guys they're being racially profiled. all different races. And it's hard to imagine, like, if that happened to me, you guys know I get mad about a whole bunch of crap and I get fired up, and I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could just be like, okay, yep, all right, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it. When I know I'm innocent and I know I'm not doing anything wrong, I'd be fired up and pissed. But these guys for their whole lives have to not do that and have to be respectful when they're not being shown the same respect. And that's why, like, it really means a lot to me. And I think it means a lot. It's going to mean something to people to see that if you don't feel those experiences and you don't go through those experiences, to see Browner, who is a white guy, who's had all the same privileges that I've had, and all the same privileges that a lot of Packer fans have had, because a lot of Packer fans in Wisconsin, they're white. And he's got a son, 2 sons, who are not white. And they may have to go through this stuff. And he's got to worry about that stuff someday. So the best thing for us to do is to try to change this crap so that Browner and other people don't have to worry about this crap. It's ridiculous. And that's really all I got to say about it. But I appreciate Browner. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate you too, buddy, and for speaking up to that. And it's interesting you bring that up. I'll just say one more thing, Jay, and we can go on to talk some Packers here. But I'm listening to like a book on tape or a podcast right now, and it's basically just a memoir of a guy growing up African American, and he talks about very early in your childhood he was taught by his grandpa and his dad, here's things you do and don't do. And it was like, if the police confront you, you say, yes, sir. You don't wear your hood up. You don't go down these streets at this certain time of night. And he says, it's just, he talks about what crap it is that he had to follow these certain rules just because of his skin color that wouldn't apply to most of, other people he went to school with and stuff like that. But he was taught a list of don'ts and do's being a African-American person very early in his life. And that's systemically needs to change.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
Brown.
I got all worked up there. Thank you, Browner.
Oh, that's okay.
It's gonna be hard to transition out of that, Jace. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but I get a little fired up. You know me, I can't hold it. I'm not a very good poker player. I usually show my hand, but hey, what are you gonna do?
You're passionate, man. That's
I know.
one of the things I love about you. There's only a couple things, and that's one of them. So, no, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But Brown, in all seriousness, before we move on, I kind of went down a little rant there, and I do want to thank you for sharing with us and bringing that to the table tonight, sharing that with anybody that watches this. I hope a lot of people do. I hope people that watch it share it as well. It's important. And congratulations, man. 10 years ago. That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Seems like yesterday, but it's been fun. He's an awesome kid. I can't wait to watch him grow up. So
I liked your recreation of your picture that you had. That was nice on Facebook. They had the picture of him and his wife and his son, and then they just recreated the picture, except he was now 11 instead of being like a 1-year-old baby. So,
yeah.
A little bit bigger, Browner. But you know what? I hate to say it, Browner, but you gained a little bit of weight in there too.
Oh,
it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years. I got to give you a break.
Well, you can give me a hard time. My 7-year-old does. The word of the week about 2 weeks ago for first grade was look, and the sentence he had to use it in a sentence, and he said, "Look at my dad's big belly." So
Oh,
wow.
I'll tell you, those kids are rough. Those kids are rough. Like Sophia is the worst. She's the hardest on me. Evan doesn't say jack, but Sophia comes up and she'll like ask me to make a muscle, right? Especially since I've been doing this push-up thing or whatever for a while. She's like, make a muscle, Dad. So I do. And then she comes up and then she like finds the weakest spot. And then she kind of pokes it and she just says, squishy. It's squishy, Dad.